Hi. How's it going? Hi, Christine. Okay, really quick exercise because you guys have been sitting for a long time and I'm about to do it again. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being I'm the worst of the worst and 10 being I'm the best of the best, how are you doing today? Hold it up on your fingers or shout it out, whatever. Okay. 5, 6, 8. Tab's exhausted. I don't know, maybe a 6. 7, 7. Cool. Okay. Some high number. 10. I love that for you. I love that for you. 8. Cool. Amazing. T, I see you. 7. Amazing. Awesome. I'd put myself at like an 8 because I get to see all of your beautiful faces here this morning. It's been a while since I've been up here like this. And so, how I wanted to kind of start the morning is just by kind of like, in social work terms, positioning myself, because I used to know like almost every face in the room, and now I know like maybe 50% of you, and probably vice versa, like whole side of the room except for my family. Hi, Auntie. I don't know you. A lot of you. Hi, Pam. Um, and so I've been attending the vineyard in itself for my whole life. I started at the Guelph Vineyard, for those of you who remembered, just like beautiful people. And then I didn't have any friends, and church was really hard. And my parents cared about that because I didn't really like church that much. I remember writing in my journal when I was like 6, I was like, I really don't like it there. And I drew like a picture of a Bible as a 6-year-old does with like one of those circles with the lines through it. It was just like so dramatic. Like, girl, it's not that serious. But so then my parents started investigating. We met some people in the community, and here we are today. I started coming when I was 10. I just turned 27. And so, like Tab just told me, you're speaking to your whole family, and I really am because I have grown here. Yeah, which is so special to me. And so, really, I'm standing here as the daughter of the house from day one. and really wanted to acknowledge that because I think this series, this whole living life on purpose, which we're talking about today, but also the Young Voices series, I think it's easy for me to think of it as like a talent show. Like, oh, look at our cute little people. Where she's shaking her head. I know it's not that. It's easy for me to think of it that way, though, right? Like, just kind of come up as a guest speak and, oh, she's so cute, and her family comes to see her, and all of these things. But, we think of Ariel, we think of Christine, we think of Ian and myself, who are all children of the house, right? And so I am standing here as a testament of the work that my mom, the woman of many words, the queen of yes day, right? The so what of my dad, who is up here all the time playing his guitar, sewing into the worship community, of Tab and Jeff, who have just like held my hand. Yeah, in such beautiful ways. Of Christine, who is a part of the youth. Yeah, I'm not even into my message. And so that's where we are today. Thank you. That's where we're coming from as a kid of the house, who is a reflection of all that you beautiful people have put into my generation. It's just awesome. Love you. Awesome. So, Mo, if I click this, am I going to get right into my, yes, amazing. We changed up the slideshow to give you something new to look at this week. And so, today's message is going to stand as a standalone. My apologies, that font is really small, so if you have to get up and like really come close to it, that's fine. I know. If you do this, it kind of works. Kind of like helps you to focus. So today's message is going to be a standalone, which is great because if you haven't been here before, you don't need to have listened to or watched our previous Young Voices messages. However, I think it's going to be I think it's going to hit harder. I think it's going to be more fun for you if we know where we've been. And so we're going to set the stage a little bit today. And so Young Voices it started a while ago, and I transitioned all the way back to Christine, even though Tab said she's not that young. The bulletin, it was Tab, it was not me. The bulletin her sermons were under this umbrella. And so that's where we started. Christine speaking on words of knowledge and healing, all through the context of love. And so we were listening about words of healing, and also we were listening about the heart of God and how that is central to any kind of ministry that we do, whether it's downstairs, up here, out in the community. Ariel came up and was just this beautiful, vulnerable human being who, we don't even talk, Queen, but was so awesome, and who shared her heart and really positioned the heart of God as friend, who is not coming after us in a legalistic, just horrific, oppressive way, but who comes into you and or who comes in and sits with you in your mess and in the dirt and calls you higher out of that, which was delightful to be a witness to, and it's online. I encourage everyone to go listen to it if you haven't already. Ian came in with a double wham. He came in teaching about the heart of God first, positioning himself and us not only as individuals, but as a vineyard movement, which is so important to know where you come from, right? Because you know where you're going. And then speaking on grace and sovereignty, positioning God as, we're not going to worry about the crying, that's life. Positioning God as someone who knows what he's doing because he's just and loving and relational and all of these beautiful things. So again, 10 out of 10, do recommend if you haven't listened to those. And so what that left me is this beautiful doorway to step into, which is, okay, now what do we do with that? Right? I come from a social work background. I teach skills. I do therapy with little ones. So fun. Which means working with the whole family, which means being really practical with people, pulling things out of the clouds and going, here's your how-to. I love charts. I love graphs. I love step-by-steps. I love systems. And so that's where we're going to kind of step in today. How do we pull practically all of these beautiful things that our young people so far have laid out, and how do we actually do that in every day? Does that sound like something that would be useful? Okay, cool. If not, I'm not offended. The exit is always there for you. Alrighty. And so we're going to start here. This is participatory. Oh, I clicked it on my computer and not on the thing. What does obedience mean to you? Shout it out. What is it? Okay, doing what you're told. Listening, okay. Honorable. Vulnerable, okay. We're getting into the Sunday school answers. Nice. Youth. What does it mean to obey? Doing what your parents say. Are they here today? Because they're going to be like, can I get that in writing? Who else? There are much more youth sitting there on the following. Okay. Finishing what you start. Okay. A response to love. Okay, so this is for review for Brandon. That's fine. It's fine. I think he just preached the whole thing. Do you want to know what Google says? I didn't go all Webster's dictionary. My dad does that when he's in the back. This is what Google illustrates it as. So I didn't go to Webster's. I love photos. I love images. I think they speak so much. And I think what Google has done here, right, is it's accumulated all these different definitions that exist out of the world. And we can see that many of these photos here that are listed, I cherry-picked a little bit, right, because there's some Bible stuff in there, but I was like, no, that's not fair. It's going to steal my point. So we went for these, like you said, right, this kind of, I'm just doing what I'm told, sir, yes, sir, right? Children obeying their parents, but it's not a cute photo, right? In the middle there. The mom is really, she's looking down. Posture is important. She's looking down. She's not like with, you know? It's a little oppressive if you look at it. Not to say that parenting is oppressive when you have to correct, but you look at the child who's looking away, who's not interested. They're not on the same page. It's not cute. It's not pretty. Parents, you don't love being in that situation, right? And then you've got an animal, which, great. We all love being reduced to an animal-type relationship, right? So I'm a firstborn, and that is important because I think it really shapes my own worldview of obedience, which is going to be important for you to know about as we go through our time together today. So firstborns, stereotypically, which I would say that I am, loves structure and rules and boundaries. Like if you just tell me what to do, I am there. Like A plus, Tab's nodding along. That's why we work so well together, because she's this beautiful visionary who's like, I would like this done. And I'm like, great, I've got 6 Excel spreadsheets. No problem. We're step by step gonna get that done, right? What I'm allowed to do. And so I think how I always kind of looked at it is this kind of like the child in the middle almost, or like the left side of the picture, this blind submission. Does that make sense? This head down, doesn't matter if I agree, doesn't matter if I believe that what I'm doing is appropriate or right, doesn't matter how the instruction was delivered. If I'm instructed to do something, I'm going ahead and I'm doing that, and I'm doing it well, right? I'm doing it the first way, the happy way, all those things, right? And so as I was reading through the Word, which I love, I'm following this Jewish reading plan this year, which gives me 4 readings a day. And so I read 2 from the, 3 actually from what would be called the Old Testament, and 1 reading from the New Testament. And so I've spent a lot of time in the Old Testament getting through like Leviticus and Numbers, which nobody's face except for Tabs lit up when I said that. Like, I know you get me. I don't even have to say it. It's beautiful and amazing, and there's so much goodness, and also it's just written in a different way for a different time, right? And so it takes a little bit more giving, and so, or a little bit more searching. And so here I am in Leviticus, the book of the laws, in Exodus and Genesis, when all of this obedience is being spoken about of Israel and these individuals to the Lord, and it's coming up, and it's coming up, and I feel like I've always read it as this kind of head-down, blind obedience, this submission to this person who is bigger than me, more powerful than me, and therefore I don't hold a cake to him being God, and I'm just going to do what I'm told. Right? Because that's the right thing to do. That's the expectation, that's the standard. And what I started to notice, which really quite caught me as I was reading through, is instead of it saying things like, remember when I gave you the 10 Commandments, clause this, section this, subsection this, paragraph this, follow this because I said so. It's actually not how God is articulating himself at all. Oftentimes it looks like something like, I am your God who pulled you out of slavery in Egypt, provided for you in the desert, right? Who pulled you out of your hardships, who adores you. Therefore, here are the expectations. Here are the statutes. When he's coming in and correcting, obedience is used. You did not obey my voice, you did not obey my voice. However, what also pops up is this phrase, you did not listen to my voice. Which is it's the thing. That was the trigger, the catalyst that really got me thinking. And so I had a really cool conversation with Tab at the beginning of the year in January, where I told her I feel like my mission for 2025 is to go into the Word and look at it through a Jewish perspective, because that's how it was written, right? And the Jewish language, the Hebrew language, is very different from English. It's not face value. And she told me this beautiful trick that Hebrew, it has so many different ways of communicating. And it's pictorial and it's story-based. And, just within one word, it teaches you a revelation about God, which has just been so fun over the last 9 months to dive into. And so that's what I started doing, is looking into the Jewish and Hebrew understanding of what obedience is. And that's where we're sitting today. And so I will not caution, but I'll put a footnote, in the sense that there are many different words in the Bible that relate to obedience. In the Old Testament, it's particularly what we're focusing on today. And so we are particularly focusing on, youth, I'm going to give you a question. We are particularly focusing on the word obedience from the Old Testament. You should be looking down at your papers because that's a question. Okay? From the Old Testament. In the New Testament, there are lots more. That can be for a later time because I was in the Old Testament. That's what caught my eye, and so that's what we're going to look at today. Okay? So here we are. Shema, right? Okay, cool. Said it right. Is the Jewish word for, or the Hebrew word for obedience in the Old Testament. When I just had those verses up, when God says, you did not listen to my voice, you did not obey my voice, this is the word that we're looking at that pops up, okay? And so I'm going to tell you about this word. I'm going to take you through the pictorial definition and meaning of this word because I think it's so important for understanding how obedience works. Again, apologies, I didn't realize how small my font was going to be, but I'm going to talk you through it, okay? So we read Hebrew opposite of the way that we read English. So all of y'all right now are probably looking at it going, we're looking at this Y thing, and then we're looking at like this snail-looking thing, and then we're looking like kind of at a different font menorah. We're going to read it the opposite way, okay? So we're going to read it right to left. So each letter in this word holds a particular meaning and denotes a particular part of a story. And so the first letter that we're looking at on the far right denotes some sort of war or battle, okay? It has to do with separation. It's like teeth grinding, where you're separating the good from the bad. There's a battle going on, a battle happening, okay? So that sets the stage for the story of the word. The middle letter denotes a choice. The picture actually, you might not see it, but kind of what it's meant to depict is this idea of water. And so there's a choice in the type of water that we choose for ourselves. That is waters of peace or waters of chaos, life or death. Okay? Making sense so far? Tracking? Okay. So we have a war or battle, something being separated, being fought for, and then we're presented with a choice. Our last letter on the far left has to do with experience and understanding and knowing something. And so when we put it all together, it does tell a story, right? It denotes this idea that there's this war, this battle, that whoever is in this war or battle is presented with a choice. And that choice, life or death, peace or chaos, is going to be the thing that determines their experience going forward. Thank you. This is me showing my work from the start of January. My firstborn self loves it. And so when we look at it, that's really different from head down, blind obedience that Western perspectives promote. This don't ask questions, do as you're told the first time that I ask, and do it the right way and be happy about it. That word does not tell that story, right? Are you quiet because you're thinking or because you're lost? Right? And so here's what this word implies. This word implies intention. It implies critical thought and the capacity to do that, to critically think. It implies choice. It doesn't just imply it, it's in the definition. It implies free will and the right and the potential to choose chaos instead of peace and to choose death instead of life. And that choice belongs to the person who's in the battle so that their experience is then determined. What it also implies is a moral compass and values. Right? That's my own Shaina thoughts. That's not written up here on the slide. And so let's take a look at some examples. I have some scriptures written out here. Ooh, I feel really bad about the font. Okay, so I'm going to read it to you. First one with the tree. We're going back to the Garden of Eden. So I'm not wrong, right? Where this obedience shows up very quickly in the word. Adam has already eaten the apple, fruit. It never says it's an apple. It says it's a fruit. Adam and Eve have eaten. God has now located them in the garden, and they're having a conversation about what life is now going to look like because they've taken part in the fruit, right? And so this quote is from God. He's speaking to Adam. Because you listened to what your wife said and ate from the tree about which I gave you the order, you are not to eat from it. Goes and talks about how they're going to have to leave the garden, and now he's going to have to work to tend to the soil. It's going to take sweat. It's going to be difficult. That word there, Shema, is listened. Because you listened, because when you were presented with a choice to listen to my voice or to your wife's voice, you chose her. You didn't choose me. And that is what determines your experience going forward. Now your experience does not get to be in the garden. You chose someone else instead of me. Tracking? Okay. The next one. Again, God speaking, but this time to Abraham. I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven and will give to your offspring all these lands. And in your offspring, all of the nations of the earth shall be blessed because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Same thing, it tells a story. Abraham had the choice. I believe he's speaking in the context of Abraham being willing to sacrifice Isaac in this case, right? There was a battle happening, a spiritual battle going on. And Abraham had the choice to say, I don't get why you would require my son that you promised me that I had to wait for, right? Tried the first time, you said that wasn't right, so then I really listened to what you said. I have this son, and that doesn't make sense. Why would you now require me to kill my own son? But okay, I trust you and I choose you. And he had the potential to not make that choice. And instead, he made that choice. He listened. He had such a love for the Lord that he said, I trust you and your character and what you're doing. You're a God who knows what he's doing. See, message from Ian. And so he made the choice, and God said, because you chose me, that now determines your future experience, which is your entire offspring becoming as countless as the stars. Pretty significant, right? And the last one, and here's what's important to know about Shema, is that for a lot of the words for obedience in the New Testament, it happens one way. We obey. It does not happen the opposite way where God obeys us. However, with Shema, two ways. Two-way street. And so we obey, we listen to, we hear, and we heed the Lord, and he does the same for us. Okay? Bit of a different understanding. So the third verse there with the ear comes from the story of the golden calf. Moses is coming down and he's telling Israel about kind of what happened. This is in Deuteronomy, which is kind of like a summary of the experience of Israel. So it's a repeat. We would have read these words already by the time we're at Deuteronomy, but here's what it says. I, Moses, was afraid of the anger and the hot displeasure that the Lord bore against you for the golden calf, so that he was ready to destroy you. But the Lord listened to me that time also. And so the Lord had a plan. He was not impressed with Israel, right? They made a golden calf. He said, Moses, you better go get your people, because down there on the mountain, we're up here, down there at the bottom of the mountain, they're not doing so hot. And I am really unimpressed. Right? And Moses prostrated himself. He said, please, God, don't do that. Don't do that. And God listened. He altered his course. There was a battle God chose which determined the experience of Israel. Okay? Tracking so far? And so when we think about what really God is asking for, when he's asking us to obey, to listen to his commandments, to follow his statutes, I was writing this, and if this doesn't resonate with you, just drop it. But I pictured Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy. Have any of you watched that? Yeah? Okay, so picture like first season when she's in the elevator with McDreamy, and he's deciding between like his wife and her, and I don't condone this. I don't think it's a healthy relationship. But what she does in the elevator is she goes, pick me, choose me, love me. What God is also kind of pulling, if you want a movie example, is from Notting Hill, where Anna, is that her name? I think. I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her. That's what I started to hear God calling for, is not this like, check these boxes, do it because it's the right thing to do, but choose me, love me over all other things. Love me more than those things that you would choose instead. I started to hear some grief in the word. Going back to the verses where God said, you did not listen to my voice, you did not obey my voice, rather than rage and anger, I started to read it through a lens of grief, right? I'm not a parent, but parents, I can imagine that when your child makes a choice that's not ideal for them, that you would have wished different, that there's a part of your heart that like twists and guts. And rage is not the word for it, that it's, I had such different hopes for you. I had such different hopes for you, and this now changes your experience, and that devastates me. And that's what I started to read in the word. Old Testament and New Testament is this grief and longing from the Lord for us to choose him and to love him, which would dictate our experience in our life. Does that track so far? Yeah? Okay. And so this word, now we're starting to get practical. It tells us something about the Christian life. It not only tells us about what God is looking for us, right? But there's a practical application. Because to be a Christian, I have always believed this from like when I first got introduced to Jesus for real when I was 12, is that a Christian life does not allow you or me to keep living life the same as we typically would. It does not involve autopilot. It involves a shift. And so if we're all sitting here in this room as people who desire to live a God-filled and God-led life, it involves some things, which is what Ian and Ariel did a beautiful job of opening the door for me to walk into, right? And so we're going to talk about that. And so here are 3 things that I kind of pulled from the understanding of that Jewish word Shema, of the Hebrew word Shema, is that a Christian life is never accidental. It involves choice and intention. We do things on purpose. Okay? The next one is that obedience in itself, a Christian life, is not blind. It involves critical thought. It involves consideration, and it involves our choice to say yes to participating. Staying up in the clouds with an understanding of the Lord is not a Christian life in its fullness. It's the start and it's a part, and it's not where it stops. Does that make sense? Okay. And the third one is that a Christian life involves separation from unhelpful choices, because it involves leaving things behind. We don't choose peace and chaos, life and death. We choose peace or chaos, life or death. The two don't coexist. Okay? And so then the question becomes, okay, Shaina, if we're going to get really practical about it, if you're going to give me the how-to, what do I do with that? I made you a flow chart. I made you a system. My dad would be so proud. He's going to be watching this later. He's at Tough Mudder, and he's going to go, a chart. And so what we see here is a bit of a time lapse, okay? So starting from the left, reading like English again, starting from the left and moving towards the right. This is not, like I didn't find a verse for this. This is kind of my own thought, my own discovery, my own system. And so take it or leave it, chew on it, discern it, see if you think it's rooted in biblical truth. And if you feel like it's not, God will show you something else. Okay? So here's where we're going to start. We're going to start with this concept of love. Why do we start with love and relationship? We choose, direct ourselves, orient ourselves to the things that hold value to us. Make sense? Okay? My body keeps turning this way, I notice, because my husband is like right there. My sister is right there. My mom is right there. My brother is right there. My auntie, my mommy-in-law, right? Like all of them are right there. And so that's the part of the room that's really easy for me to drift towards. The same happens in our choices. When I'm offered Subway or Wendy's, I'm going with Subway. I think Wendy's is nasty. Sorry, I know, controversial, I know. That's an opinion, not a biblical truth, right? I'm going to choose the things I like. I'm going to walk towards the things that I set my eyes on, that I set my ears on, that hold value to me. I spent so much money on a Taylor Swift concert last year. It was wild. And I did that because I wanted to go so bad, because I really enjoy her music and wanted to participate in the show, right? Could have put that towards like a mortgage or a down payment. Nope. I'm on the phone. I'm like, can I fly to Vancouver? I did. It happened. Next step, awareness. And I put awareness and discernment as different on purpose, okay? So the thing about awareness is how I kind of understood and defined it is the knowledge of what the voice of the Lord sounds like and feels like. It's the knowledge and awareness of how to find God in the room, where you are, so that you know just where he is. I know exactly that my husband is right there. I'm obsessed with him. If he were to go to the bathroom, I would know about it, right? Because there's such an intense awareness of his presence and how it relates to me in the room and how close I am to him and how far I am to him. That's my awareness. And so, do you want to try it? Do you want to try a little exercise? I'm a therapist. I thought I'd bring in a little like grounding strategy, and I think we have time for it. I wasn't sure if we would. So we'll do it collectively. This is something called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 tool. Can be really good when anxiety is taking over, when depression is trying to take over, because, anyways, no, that's another message. First task is us as a group is to name 5 things that we can see. You just shout it out. A green water bottle. Me. Speaker. Coffee cup. What'd you say, Titus? What? Microphone. Yep, you're not wrong. What'd you say, Sim? Laptop. All the people in the room. Me. A walker. A cross. That's way more than 5. You guys are so aware. Next thing, 4 things that we can hear. You can hear me. Children. There's something that I can't hear. The aircon. Yep. Talking. Yeah, my voice and other people, right? Okay? 3 things we can feel. Chair beneath you. The Holy Spirit. Nice. Were you going to say the same thing? Cold air. Holy Spirit, cold air. Who knows? Your jeans on your legs. I can feel all your eyes on me. Skin. Yep. Yep. That was 3. 2 things. What ones am I forgetting? See, hear, feel, touch, and taste. Smell. That's the other thing. 2 things you can smell. Perfume, coffee, essential oils. That's how you know tab is here. Clean laundry detergent. 1 thing you can taste. Coffee. My halls. Yep, it's September. Yep. You can what? Mints. Yes. Beautiful. And so what that just did, how many of you, whether you said it out loud or were just kind of hearing what other people observed, how many of you became aware of something in the room that you weren't aware of before? At least 1 hand. Yeah? Yeah? I can't taste mints right now. I don't have it in my mouth. Alexis can. That drew me into a different level of awareness into the room that I initially had. Right? And so how do we build an awareness for the Lord, to the Lord? See Ian's message. Right? That's so fun for me. Things like spending time in the Word, because you cannot become aware of where He is in the room and what He's doing if you don't know His character. What He looks like, sounds like, feels like, smells like, tastes like. You can't do it. Right? I'm so aware of where Johnny is in the room because I know what he looks like. I know what his presence feels like to me. Right? Which is very different. Awareness is going to be very different from discernment, which is our ability to pick out and become aware of the Lord and separate it from other things in the room. When you were becoming aware of the sounds in the room, I'm sure that half of you decided not to hear the children because it's like the most obvious answer, right? They're loud and it's beautiful, right? And so we separate ourselves from that sound in order to locate something else. And so our job as Christians is not only to be aware of the character of the Lord and what He feels like, sounds like, smells like, tastes like, but also to be able to discern His voice from the other ones that are coming at us, because they will. That's the whole point of the battle, right? There will be other forces, voices, thoughts that try to take your attention away, get you to make other choices that are more destructive for your well-being. And the last one, I named action, which I summarized as the choices that we make about how to respond to events and choices. And I put there that obedience is a possible fruit of our action. It's also possibly not a fruit, depending on the choices that we make, right? And so in this flow chart, I very on purpose did not make it here's a guaranteed way to participate in obedience. Because I don't think there is a flow chart for that. Because it's so relational, right? And it involves personal connection and you developing your own system with the Lord to determine what it is to hear His voice and then respond to it. He's going to call us all to different things. And so this one, it's a flow chart that acts as a guide, like an ethical decision-making almost. Nice. Like an ethical decision-making. Okay? And here's why I love the Jewish, the Hebrew understanding of obedience is that everything about it is rooted not in our actions, like Jonathan was saying earlier, right? Nothing we could ever do could fully line up with the expectations of the Lord. It's impossible. We're human. It doesn't weigh on our action, our discernment, or our awareness. What obedience rides on and finds itself on is our love for the Lord. The things that we value, because everything else is decided by that. And so if our love for the Lord, if our interpretation about who He is, what he does and his character is competing with something else in our lives, this flow chart's going to feel a little messy, right? What it also means is that God isn't coming to you in that legalistic way, going, hey, subsection B, didn't do that very well. Here's right up. Gonna add that to your file, 3 strikes, you're out. That doesn't exist. It's rooted in your heart posture and it's rooted in your intention. My personal belief is that if you have the intention of seeking God, and not just like, oh yeah, I tried, but like real true intention, and you're trying, and your heart is there, my firm belief is that if we mess up, that it actually kind of still counts, right? If we're authentically seeking the Lord, he is going to draw us to the things that are most true. Right? Any questions so far? And so here's what I love is that redemption is all over the story. Because we know from the experience of Jesus in the New Testament, right? His blood has come and covered everything that we could possibly get wrong. And that redemption story has existed from the beginning. And so here I'm going to take you through Deuteronomy. It's an excerpt. So I kind of cut and paste a couple of key sections. So if you go to your Bible and read the story, there will be more chunks in between. Okay? I love this story because I think it represents the redemption story. It really caught my attention when I was reading through it. And so I'll read it to you because, again, the font's not perfect. So kind of backstory, Israel, the nation at this point, has already gone through the Exodus. So they're out of Egypt. They're kind of like in this, not like a lull, but they're in the in-between, the already and not yet, right? Like they've been rescued, they've been saved, they know God is their redeemer, provider, savior, and yet they're also in the wilderness. And so they're in this kind of journey of like, they come into other nations, and they come across other people, and there's this kind of like back and forth between God and Israel, of God going, okay, go fight this nation because I'm with you and you're going to overtake them. Or God going, don't fight that nation. We're going to go around. We're going to go a different way. Okay? Just so you know, that's where we are. And so Israel at this point has come across a nation that looks really pretty sweet. They've got great food, they've got great land, and Israel had sent people out. They hadn't decided to fight yet. They had sent people out to kind of scope it out, and they came back and they said, oh yeah, this would be a sweet one, right? And then they say, but where can we go? Our brothers have made our hearts melt in fear. They say, those people in the nation are stronger than we are and taller than we are. The cities are large with walls up to the sky, and we even saw the Anakites there. And then God said to them, don't be terrified. Don't be afraid of them. The Lord your God, who is going before you, will fight for you as he did for you in Egypt before your very eyes. And so God's giving them permission, right? He's giving them permission. You got this one. Go for it. And so we know that they have a love for the Lord. They know him, right? He's a God with a history of, he's going before you, he'll fight for you just like he did in Egypt, right? That's like we said at the beginning, I am the Lord who. Here's who I am to you. Here's what I've done for you. And that's where he's coming in. And yet there was a competing love in the mix. And that was their fear. And so what happened is they decided not to go and fight. In spite of this, you did not trust in the Lord your God. They set up camp. They said, no way. After a while, that changed their experience. God's frustrated. You didn't choose me. You chose something else. And so they tried to course correct. Okay, we made this choice. We decided not to fight. Ooh, God didn't like that. Okay. And they said, okay, we'll go and we'll fight. We'll do it. And then funny enough, the Lord said to them, don't tell them not to. Tell them not to go and fight anymore. Because that first choice that they made, it dictated their experience. And now I'm not with you. Don't go and fight. My will has changed. My course has altered. And so what is that? Another opportunity for them to be sensitive to his spirit, to be aware of where he is in their space and what he's doing and inviting them into, to discern what it is that they're being asked to do, despite their fear, whose voice is also quite loud. Right? Again, they don't have the awareness, they don't have the discernment, they go and fight, probably thinking that they were doing a really good job of course correcting, right? Oh, he said to it first, so now we're doing it. We're going to succeed. Defeat. Just like he said. So what this articulates to me, well, we should talk about how the story ends because that's kind of a sad ending. It takes a while, right? They go through these experiences of defeat through a couple of nations, okay? A couple of nations come, they fight, they battle. Israel is not looking so super hot. And then God again comes in and turns it around. He says, I got your back, guys. I'm still the God who delivered you. I'm still the God who saves you. Your experience was dictated by your choice. I'm still here, and the story turns. So that God now pulls them through the defeat of multiple kings and nations, and Israel is now back up on its feet. So redemption has existed for a long, long time, right? It's not just for Jesus' time. The story of redemption is key, right? And so even though there was something else that came in and took Israel's love away from the Lord for a hot minute, he said, it's okay, baby, you can still come back. I've still got space for you. Let's course correct together. Tracking? We're doing okay for time. So I'm going to take you through a practical story of my own and my husband's life. And then we're going to do some prayer ministry. Are you okay with being here till like 12? Oh, that clock says 11:55. It's only 11:50. I'm not going to come up with extra content, but that makes me feel better. So Johnny and I only got married last year. We're friends. And so I don't know why I said that. He works in the trades. He's awesome. Great job. We need this type of work, right? And so in his role, there's a lot of room for conversation, right? You got to wait for people to approve certain projects and various steps. Andrea's nodding along yep, that's trades, right? And so there's a lot of space in Johnny's day for conversation. And these guys, they have funny conversations, is a taco or a hot dog more like a taco or a sandwich? They have those kind of conversations. And also, they go really super deep. Johnny's just out there talking about God and his relationship with God, and to these people who are I could never, and I would never, right? And just sowing seeds, and I think it's so awesome. I don't even think you do it on purpose. It just comes up. And so recently there's been a conversation about tithing and giving some money to the church. And there are people at work, you correct me if I'm wrong, who are you crazy. Why on earth would you do that, right? Regardless of the percentage, regardless of the amount, which doesn't matter in this story, why would you give money to someone who, doesn't give you an account by count of what they use the money for, which they do? Why would you use that money for the church when you could put that towards a mortgage payment for the house you just bought, or towards saving for something? You want a car one day for a family, right? Why wouldn't you save that money? And Johnny comes back with, well, I've never lacked. It's important, and I've never lacked. And so what is that the story of, what is that articulating? It articulates kind of the flow chart for us, is that as a couple, when we got married and we're deciding how to utilize our funds and our financials, we came up with core values first. Going back to love, right? First and foremost, we're a God-loving couple, and this house, our house, will be a house of the Lord that values that first. And so my mom always said, find yourself a guy who carries the same faith and values as you, because you will be able to come together and make choices based on that moral compass, right? That's what's happening, is that as two people who understand God to be the same provider and constant, that is something and someone that we are now willing to invest our financials into. Does that make sense? So love is the first thing. Awareness is the next piece. We're aware of the fact that God is asking us to do this, right? We've spent time in the Word. We've spent time with people who we love and care about, who have mentored us through such things. We've spent time listening to the voice of the Lord in terms of what the percentage looks like and what the amount looks like. And so we know what we're being asked. You can see discernment playing out in the workplace, where another voice is now coming in. My guess would be that it's a fear-based voice going, oh, but you're not going to have enough. You're not going to have enough. Why wouldn't you put those funds towards something else so that you can protect yourself? Why would you take that chance? And so our ability to discern the voice of the Lord, in this case, I'm not saying we're like perfect little Christian angel children, right? Our ability in this case to discern the voice of the Lord is the thing that allows us to take confident action and to do it anyways, and to actually say face to face to those people, yeah, I've never lacked. It's worked so far, right? Which has determined our experience. We now know more than ever that God is a provider. We chose to believe that, to trust that. Now we do know it, and we'll continue to know it going forward. Right? And so I brought that example in, again, not to brag and to say, haha, we tithe. No. But because it's a sensitive topic, right? I remember board members once a year coming up here and being like, hey guys, don't forget, it's a practice worth doing. And it was just kind of like one of those vibes that someone drew straws, who actually was going to come up and say that. It's a controversial topic, right? From the Christian perspective and the non-believer perspective, where people, Christian and non-Christian, are like, why on earth would you do that? Why on earth would you put effort into sussing that out, whether that's right for you? And it's got a practical implication, right? There are a certain number of dollars every month going towards the house. That matters, right? And so I share that to introduce, again, the idea that the Christian life does not stop in the clouds. It doesn't stop in the feelings and the experience. It's real. And there are actual steps that we take and choices that we make. Yeah? And so we're going to enter into prayer. I've put some reflection questions up. Again, my social worker brain just kind of took over here. And so there's some things over the next little while, whether it's today for the next 15 minutes, whether it's over your next week, you determine what feels good for you and what feels right for you and what you take home. So we've got some questions. You don't have to choose all 4 to reflect on. You can choose one that sticks out to you. You could choose a different one. It doesn't have to be these. But the questions are, what is God calling me into? What could God be calling this church into? I don't think it's an accident that Ariel and Ian, like this series has been so scaffolded. We started with love, and then we moved into awareness with Ian. And now here we are talking about action. Wait till Nini, I wasn't going to spoil it, but I was going to. It is. I love that girl. And so I don't think it's by accident that God used 3 people. I don't know what the 2 of you, how often you 2 talk, but we don't talk that often, if ever. We don't talk that often, right? And so not all 3, we didn't sit down and go, so what are we going to tell the church? How are we going to rock their socks as the young people? We didn't do that. We were all on our own journeys. God plugged something into our brains, and it's turned out to be a very scaffolded journey. And so I don't think it's by accident that the whole church is hearing about this journey. I was talking with Tab. I said, can I say that? Can I challenge people to start listening to and discerning what is for the church? And she said, absolutely, because leadership is doing the same thing. And so what we're being invited to now as a body, not just individuals, we're being invited into something, the vineyard. I firmly believe that. I don't think it's by accident that Tab was standing up here today going, pray about how you're going to play. Pray about your role. I'll leave that there. What small thing can I do to take one small step towards the Lord in a heart of obedience? And what could I be valuing that may be getting in the way of choosing God? That's all. And so I'm going to pray. I don't know if there are words that people, like if anyone was getting anything on the prayer ministry team, but if you want prayer for those things, if you want prayer for anything else, prayer ministry at cvcf.ca, yeah? Beautiful. If later in the week you decide there's something. Yeah, just like Mama said, God, thank you so much for the opportunity just to come together and being able to participate in such a beautiful family and environment. And God, we come before you as a people who need help, who do their best to do what's right and to make good choices. But God, we know that all fall short, that there's no such thing as doing it right all of the time. And so we come before you grateful, so grateful for who you are, the forgiver, the redeemer, the provider, the guide, the comfort, the one who meets us where we are rather than asking us to come to him. And so this morning, we ask for you to come and to realign our hearts, to reintroduce yourself, your voice, your being, your spirit, that we would learn and become increasingly aware with every breath of what you feel like, taste like, hear like. Realign our hearts so that you would be the number one, the first and foremost, the easy choice, because we know that with you, our experience is one of peace, joy, love, gentleness. We ask for the courage to pay attention to your voice instead of the things that feel louder. We speak against fear and depression, worry, hurt, that may be trying to take our attention away from you. And we silence those things in the name of Jesus. We invite you in to ground us in your truth and help us to chase after you with every step. We pray for all of the people that are coming up for the words of knowledge today. We know that those things came up because you desire to encounter these folks. And so, Jesus, we say yes and amen to all of those things. Thank you for the blood that covers all of our missteps and welcomes us back home. In Jesus' name, amen.